Welcome students. I'm Dr. Anuradha, Assistant Professor, PG and Research Department of History, Shisharda College for Women, Salem. In this video, we are going to see about the sources of Indian history. India's rich heritage stretches back thousands of years, encompassing diverse civilizations, cultures, and traditions. To understand this complex tapestry of history, we rely on a variety of sources, each offering unique perspectives on ancient Indian civilization. History of each nation is a heritage for its future generations to come. Glorious works done by the predecessors inspire next generations. After analyzing their mistakes, decide their course of actions and efforts of regaining the glorious past is done. Any society can't save its cultural heritage by staying away from its past. Hence, every society is connected with its past and plans for future on the basis of its past. This is the reason each nation attaches prime importance to the study of its history. When we study the importance of Indian history, then many characteristics of that time come across which we don't get from any other nation's ancient culture. Firstly, India is the only country which made humans cultured and civilized first. The time when other people of civilized and developed nations were living in forest, living life of animals, India had already developed high-class culture. Secondly, India is the only country whose cultural lifeline has been flowing since very ancient periods. In all other countries where developed, any specific culture have been lost in times and their existence ended. Today, they are only a subject of history. Sources of Indian history. India is an ancient country. As per many Indian scholars, Indian culture is the oldest in the world. Indians pondered over all aspects of life and being expert in writing. They composed literature on poetry, philosophy, art, science, and other topics. As per foreign scholars too, Indian culture is older than China, Egypt, Mesopotamia, etc. Despite having such great scholars in greatly civilized ancient country, India does not have a written chronology of history. This looks surprising. Some foreign historians have done to the extent and said that Indian historian lacked historical sense, reaching to conclusion that there was no historical creation in ancient Indian time would be wrong. Actually, there were no such important historical development in that period that could be recorded. Actually, this can be considered as truth that Indians were neutral to history and politics, and they used to study these subjects under other social disciplines only. As per Dr. R.C. Majumdar, one of the greatest defects of Indian culture is the aversion of Indians to write history. They applied themselves to all conceivable branches of literature and excelled in many of them, but never seriously took to writing history. Alberoni says Hindus don't pay much attention to the historical order of things. As regards knowing Indian resources, sources of history prior to 6th century BC are limited, but post that period, we have enough sources. Researchers till now have dug out sufficient ancient Indian history resources. Even then, it is not possible to have a chronological description of ancient Indian history. As other nations, many reasons being absence of great historians like Herodotus of Greece, Livy of Rome, and Alberoni of Turkey. Reasons of neutralism of Indians towards history, lack of chronological order in Indian history can't be justified to see it as lack of historical sense. There can be many reasons for such ignorance to historical chronology. Main sources of Indian history. Before that, we can see that there can be many reasons for such ignorance to historical chronology. Historical writers were Brahmanas. Composer of entire Indian literature were Brahmanas who had little interest in politics. Their interest was more in poetry, arts, philosophy, and science. This section of society was majorly involved in spiritual meditation and establishment of moral values. They had little interest in physical life. Instead of describing activities of kings and emperors, they mentioned different disciplines required for guidance of the society of their ages. This is why their nation could not go to chronological listing of events. Historians gave importance to concepts rather than events. So, study of ancient material tells us that scholars of the time were inclined towards propounding different concepts. They said less information to the events happening in the society. They were of the view that forces behind such events need to be analyzed. Events are not important. Hence, due to negligence of events, chronology got neglected. So the other point is huge point of view of scholars, accepting that ancient Indians were totally ignorant about history is not true, as we have huge material available in the form of ancient literature. Actually, ancient Indians had huge perspective about history and they considered it as part of knowledge. They saw history as a part of religion, morality, politics, economics, and literature. Hence, they never felt the need of writing chronological history. Then, the negligence towards writing history. Even then, we can't deny that they were ignorant towards writing history, though no other spices of the world did such history writing the way it is done in modern times. Still, the tendency of accepting history as a separate branch is more among foreigners than Indians. Search of ancient Indian history. This is known to all that history is totally dependent on resources for study. This is the reason that foreign and Indian historians have tried to unite broken chain of Indian history with great effort and dedication. Work of finding Indian history resources was started by the British scholars. They interpreted it as per their interest. It resulted in many misconceptions about Indian history. Later on, when Indian historians took job in their hands, then many of those were clarified and Indian history its deserved place. Discovery of ancient Indian history started in the second half of the 18th century. Max Muller translated Vedas in English, which established superiority of Indian civilization over entire Western world. After this, English scholars translated Bhagavad Gita, Shakuntala, etc. in English. In 18th century, Asiatic Society of Bengal started research in Asia. With this, Indian historians too got inspired to know about Indian history. In 1862, Department of Law was established in Indian archaeology. Lord Curzon showed interest and discovery and protection of old monuments got encouragement. This work is continuing with the foreign and Indian scholars. In 1922, Under John Marshall, his leadership, Harappan culture was discovered. This work is progressing. Different excavation work at various sites in India is helping to piece together scattered culture. Thus, there is no big issue in knowing ancient Indian historical knowledge. Only problem is the chronology. These sources, as a result of regular researches, are being more capable of interpreting history. Next, we are going to see about the main sources of Indian history. So it's required that we study those main sources with the help us know about history itself. They can be divided into three parts as below. Archaeological sources, literary sources, accounts of foreign travelers. We can see the flowchart of the sources of ancient Indian history. Archaeological sources. In ancient Indian history, archaeological material has helped a lot. In fact, it has helped in writing scientific historical writing. Archaeology itself has become independent discipline where historical material is silent or unclear. That is comes in as handy. In ambiguous situations, archaeological material only helps and fills up blank areas of history. Had historical materials did not help, we would not have been able to know about prehistoric Indian period. Archaeological materials can be divided into four parts in context of Indian history. Excavation materials, epigraphs or inscriptions, monuments and coins. So first we are going to see about the excavation material. Different sites have been excavated in India and remains and wreckages of towns, buildings, temples, and various forts have been found. These provide ample information about the ancient Indian history. Many blurred pages of our history have become clear. Dates have been defined, and many scattered pieces of information can be joined together. In Mohenjo-daro and Harappa excavation, we have found remains of town, buildings, human body, animal skeletons, images of deities, utensils, tools, roads, and bathing pools, etc. This throw light on civilization of about 5,000 years ago. With the excavation of Dakshashila, ambiguity of chronology of Kushan Panash has been stored. Many Buddha idols have found from Sanchi, which are evident to the rise and fall of Jain and Buddha faith. Similarly, remains found in Sarnath gave ample information on Buddha religion. Next, epigraphs. So this play a vital role in the reconstruction of ancient Indian history. It helps in joining pieces of history. On the basis of these epigraphs, scholars have tried to refine information found from other sources. These are most reliable as their authenticity can't be doubted, as they are imprint of metals and stones. These inscriptions are imprint on stone bars, pillars, copper scripts, idols, and walls of buildings. They have been used of many languages. Actually, these inscriptions have used that language which is relating to people of that area. These various inscriptions found from various parts of the country have been written in various languages like Brahmi, Sanskrit, Pali, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, etc. Script of these inscriptions is majorly Brahmi. Besides, many inscriptions have been found in Kharoshti script, which is written from right to left and was prevalent in northwest part of contemporary India. Different inscriptions found in various parts of India. Maximum inscriptions are in the form of donation paper as a monument of important events and certificates of kings, etc. We got to know about the contemporary social, religious, political, economical, and cultural conditions of India. First place in inscriptions is of Ashoka. His inscriptions are not only in plenty but full of variety. In fact, they present a live picture of his autobiography and situations of his time. These are scattered all across his kingdom and are inscripted mainly as king's degree or declaration and show Buddha's faiths, principles, and idols of Ashoka's life. They are mainly written in Brahmi and Kharoshthi scripts. Inscriptions of post-Ashoka period are both of government and non-governmental nature. In state inscriptions, state poets have admired kings and emperors. One such script of Samudragupta is there in Allahabad Fort. Knowledge on Gupta period depends on this resource. At one side, certificate of Vikram Sen, the Sen Vanish in Bengal, and Gwalior certificate of Bhoja are the major source of Pratigara rulers. The same of Chalukya kingdom, Pulikesi II, is also an important historical heritage. Number of non-governmental scripts are more. Majorly, these are imprint on deities' idols or on walls of temples. At one hand, they tell us about religious life and art, and on the other hand, about literature and language of that period. There are many inscriptions found overseas which throw light on our history, like in Java, Sumatra, China, Japan, Tibet, and Sri Lanka. Thus, they not only tell us about emperor's dynasty, regime, and the extent of their empire, but also about the situation of country and time. In the absence of such material, our pages of Indian history would have remained empty. Next, we are going to see about the monuments. The way inscriptions tell us about the political aspect of history, similarly, monuments tell us about cultural and religious aspects of history. Buildings, images, artwork, stupa, mat, vihar, chaitya, temple, and painting, etc. are included in it. For academic objective, we can divide them into Indian and foreign monuments. Among Indian monuments, Takshashila, Mathura, Kausambi, Saranath, Padaliputra, Rajagriha, Jhansi, Nalanda, etc. are main. The monuments found from excavation at Takshashila, we have been able to sort out the issue of chronology for Kushan dynasty. Similarly, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro excavation has told us about 5,000 years old civilization. Sarnath excavation had brought to light carving work which is incomparable to any work. Besides, painting of Ajanta caves, stone temple in Devgarh, district of Jhansi, brick temple of Kanpur, and a copper idol of Buddha found from Nalanda, which is not a monument, is an introduction of great sculpture. Monuments found overseas throw light on its foreign relations. These being in the form of temples or idols, give information for Indian religion and culture's propagation. Indian art can be found of artwork of Java and Cambodia. There are many temples and monuments in Java. Malay, Lanka, Bali, etc. also have many such monuments. These are sufficient to prove that Indians went there to promote their culture and religion. They were impressed by Indian concepts and thus Indians established cultural empire there. Hindus settled there also a large number. Next, we are going to see about coins. In ancient Indian history, contributions of coins, currency, and seals is immense. Different types of currency have been found from different parts of country. Period of 206 to 300 BC is mainly depend on currencies. In their absence, this period would have remained dark. Initially, these currencies only had images of deities and did not carry king's picture or dates. In the northwest part of India, when Greek rulers of Bactria started ruling, then due to their contact, Indian kings also started the practice of printing their name and dates on them. Saka, Pallava, and Kushan kings followed Greek rulers. Contemporary currencies throw light on Saka kings and Malwas and Yude Republic. Pictures of gods and goddesses give religious information of the time. Pictures imprint of coins issued for special occasions have details of that event. Extent of the empire also is known by the coins and currencies. The coins of Samudra period has imprint of Ashwamedha Parakram, which indicates that he did Ashwamedha Yajna. Knowledge of number of rulers for any particular dynasty is also known by coins. We have found enough Roman currencies in India, which indicates that India had trade relations with them sometime. Maximum currencies are made up with gold, silver, and copper, or by mixing two metals. With gold or mixture of copper in gold can give us idea of economic condition of that time. Total gold or little bit of copper in gold tells about economic prosperity, whereas more mixing of copper tells us about economic weakness of that time. Copper currencies are issued a lot. Next, we are going to see about the literary sources. We include those in literary sources which are there in the form of granth. We can divide this into two categories, religious literature and secular literature. So religious literature. India is a religious country and hence ancient Indian history too has religious form. Quality is that it not only analyzes religious principles but also tells about political, social, economical conditions. Thus, it is a heritage of our country. Religious literature can be further divided into three parts: Vedic literature, Buddha literature, and Jain literature. In these, we are going to see about the Vedic literature first. This is world's oldest literature. Veda have maximum importance in it. There are 4 Vedas: Rigved, Yajurved, Samved, and Atharvaveda. Though Veda is counted in religious literature, yet its historical importance is no less. Rigved and Atharvaveda have more importance. Rigveda is oldest and gives information about Aryan life and throw light on social, political, and economic condition. Atharvaveda is a live presentation of cultural development of Aryans. After Veda comes Brahma Granth, which describe Vedic mantras in detail. Not only this, they also mention contemporary social, economical, and political life. Aranyak and Upanishads are last part of Brahman Granth, which ponders over philosophical questions. These throw light on religious and cultural life of early Hindus. After them comes Sudras, which are divided into three parts: Kalpa, Grahya, and Dharma. Classical classification and a detailed mention of Vedic Yajna is a subject matter of Kalpa Sutra. Rituals and yajna related with married life is mentioned in Grahya Sutra. It also tells about the social life of that time. Dharma Sutra has mention of political, social, and constitutional provisions. Apart from Sudra literatures, 6 Vedanka, Shiksha, Kalpa, Nirutya, Vyakarna, Joshit also are very important. In period of Mahakavya period, that is epic period, important literature was created, out of which Ramayana and Mahabharata are important. There is dispute on their actual date as they are not clear. This throws detailed light on social, political, and religious life of Aryans. Ramayana has mention of Kaushal of Audh and Videh of Bihar, whereas Mahabharata has mention of war between Gaurava and Pandava and their allies coming from different parts of the country. Apart from epics, Quran and memoirs are also part of Vedic literature, and these two give ample historical information. There are total 18 Puran like Vishnu Puran, Matsya Puran, and Vayu Puran, etc. Puranas has description of some dynasties which are not found anywhere. Historical material is available in Vishnu Puran for Maurya Vansh and Matsya Puran about Andhra Vansh of South. Smritis are integral part of Aryan literature. Circulated in names of different sages, these two are vital historically. Manu, Narad, and Brihaspati Smriti are major of them. Next, we are going to see about the Buddhist literature. Just like Aryan literature, Buddha literature too is important. Chataka present live picture of pre-life of Mahatma Buddha filled with exaggeration events. Though they have used some imaginations also, yet they are best source of knowing about social condition of pre-Buddha. Religious Granth of Buddha are known as Tripitaka, which has details of Buddha principles. Each Pitak has separate analysis of different subjects. Sutta Pitak has collection of Buddha's principles, which is based on 5 Nikayas, that means collections. Abhidhamma Pitaka discussed about Vedantic principles. Vinaya Pitak describes about organization and disciplines of Buddha Mat. There is more literature in Buddhism in Pali and Sanskrit language. That is discussion of Greek king Milinth and Buddha Bhikshu Nahasen in Milinth Panho in Pali language. Besides, in Deepavanash and Mahavansh, there is historical mention related with Lanka, but is also throws light on Indian history. Many facts related to Chandragupta Maurya have been found from these Buddha Granth. Buddha literature is also found in Sanskrit language, which is related with Hinayan and Mahayan faith. Mahavatsu, Lalit Vistar, Buddha Charita, Manjushri, Mool Kalpa, etc. are part of Sanskrit literature. Next, we are moving on to Jain literature. It also plays a vital role in Indian history. It is more important since it has some information which are not even available in Vedic or Buddha literature. Kalpa Sutra and Bhadrabahu are important Granth among those written in 5th and 6th century. Their quality is that they are presented in such manner that historians does not have problems collecting facts. And Acharanga Chutra has detail of behavioral rulers for Jain bhikshus. Parishistha Parvana was composed by Acharya Hemachandra. Description of kings and Jain emperors is found in this Granth since the time of Mahavir Swami. Grandson of Ashoka, Samprati, that means Chandragupta II, was Jain, whose detail is found in this Granth and others. Bhadrabahu Charita has characterization of emperors Sampriti's guru Bhadrabahu. 12 Ankas are important in Jain Agam Granth. Secular literature. In Indian history, place of secular or religious literature is also important. We can divide this into 3 parts: literary, Granth, historical Granth, and autobiography. In this, we are going to see about the literary Granth. Ancient Indian literature is reservoir of Granth, and Mahabhashya of Patanjali gives information about initial time of Sungavanash. Details of Maurya Vanash is received from Panini's Ashtangridaya. Similarly, Bilhana's Vikramanaka Charita and Devi Charit is glory of Chalukya Emperor Vikramanak Dev believes us about major events of that time. Political state of Akai's Shakunta period is known as Kalidasa's Malavikapni Mitra. Knowledge about last stage of Nandvanish and beginning period of Maurivanish is received by Mudra Rakshas of Visagadat. In 7th century, with the help of Dandin's Rasakumara Charitam, we get to know about decline of Buddha religion. In this context only, Prabandha Ghosh of Rajeshwar and Kirti Kaumudi of Someshwar are vital. Next, historical Granth. Arthashastra of Kautilya is the most reliable historical Granth. It contains political scenario, administration, and social and religious life of Maurya time by Chanakya, Prime Minister of Chandragupta Maurya. Second important Granth is Rajatarangani of Kashmiri scholar Kalhana. It throws ample light on middle of 12th century history of Kashmir. Harsh Charita by Banapatta is important as it throws light on 7th century history. Details of South Indian states is found in Tamil and Prakrit language material. Vakpatai of Prakrit language has briefed in his book Gaudaho, Life History of Kannauj, King Yashovarman. Jiva Charitra. Harsh time India in Harsh Charita of Banapatta, details of Palvanish, and in Nandiram Charit, Ballal Charit of Anandabhat as details Senvanish, Prithivrai Vijay of Jayanand and Prithviraj Rasu of Chanbadai is important. Accounts of foreign travelers. Outside visitors' detail of India too are important from historical perspective. We can expect exaggeration from them from admiring India. They are mostly neutral, but due to not having knowledge of Indian society and its language at places, they have gone imaginary. Nutshell, they are important to Indian history. Out of them, we get brief of Irani, Greek, Chinese, and Muslim travelers who present Indian condition of the time. Irani travelers. When Indian prosperity became matter of discussion in Western nations, then in the beginning of the 6th century BC, Iran king sent his messenger, Skylax, to India. He came to India and studied its geographical condition. His description is quite interesting. Even Emperor of Iran, Darium, too has written about India. These articles throw light on India-Iran relations. war tactics and farming details too is present in his articles. Head medical counselor of Iran, pieces too has mentioned about India, but is not much reliable. Greek travelers. Descriptions of travelers who came with Alexander are more reliable. One was Commander Nearchus, another was Aristobulus, who wrote his journey detail in old age, but now his detail are not available. After the demise of Alexander, his commander, Seleucus, took control of his eastern empire. He sent his ambassadors in Mauryan king's court. He did a treaty with Chandragupta Maurya after being defeated by him, and Megasthenes was sent to his court. He stayed in India for a long time, and in his book Indica, threw light on administration and social life of India, though his book is not available now. But writers after him took several contexts from his book, like Arrian, Appian, Strabo, Justin, etc. Important historical granth of Arrian is more. Ptolemy about geography, and Pliny has mentioned about animals and plants of India. Next, Chinese travelers. Ashoka sent many propagators to Central Asia for promoting Buddha's faith. But from where in China promotion of Buddha faith and Indian culture happened? Chinese started seeing India with respect as a country of religion. To satisfy religious needs and understand Buddha faith, many visitors came from China and stayed here for long. Though the details are mostly religious, yet they throw some light on social, political situation. Most important of Chinese visitors were Fagian, Hunsang, and Itzing. Fagian has details of Chandragupta II. He defines himself to religious aspects only. Still, his script has historical value. Hunsang came to India during Harshavardhana rule. Apart from religious details, he also mentioned social, political, economical situation. Itzing came to India in 7th century and studied for long in Nalanda and Vikramasila University. He too mentioned religious and social conditions of the time. Muslim travelers. In the middle of 9th century, one Arabic traveler, Sulaiman, came to India. His descriptions gives information on Pal and Pratihar Vanish. Second, Al-Masudi stayed in India in the middle of 10th century and has mentioned about Rashtrakuta rulers. Abu Jaid has written about trade between India and Eastern countries. Among writers who wrote about India, Al-Biruni has the highest place, who came with Muhammad Ghazni. When Ghaznavi was busy in plundering the nation, Al-Biruni was busy in studying Sanskrit. After studying Sanskrit, he studied various subjects and got knowledge about our culture and civilization. After this study only, he wrote Tahiki-Hind. This is an important historical material of India, though it has less political details, yet it is important from geographical perspective. Aforesaid details prove that though Indian scholars did not take history as a separate discipline, yet they did not ignore it. Sources in access of modern historians give ample knowledge to them, and while arranging it in order does not become a problem for them. So next, we are going to see about the sources of medieval Indian history. The study of medieval history of India unfolds through its contemporary sources. As history progresses towards medieval era, from the ancient past, the abundance of historical materials become evident. They are more in number and richer in content also. This nature is varied. While many of the chroniclers were written by authors who were patronized by the kings and sultans, many authors and their texts did not have the biases of the court chronicler. Types of sources. The sources of medieval India has been divided into various categories. Apart from the textbooks and other scholarly treatises written by authorities in the present time, the main bulk of sources comprises of those literary texts and archaeological findings which have survived and have been reclaimed from various places like private colleges, films, libraries, and excavation sites. First, we are going to see about the literary sources. The literary sources have been further divided into religious and non-religious sources. Religious sources were written by various authors comprising the various existing religions of the contemporary times. In medieval India, this essentially meant Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Christianity, though the first two was numerically more than the others. Further, the same also consists of very important Sufi and Bhakti poetries, which resonated throughout the length and breadth of the subcontinent through several saints. The other variety of literary sources comprise of what is usually known as secular sources. These consist of biographies, literary books, foreign travelers' accounts, royal orders, and letters. Next, religious sources. These consist of treatises written by religious scholars for the propagation and dissemination of the tenets of religion. In many instances, the emperors who were devout Muslim devoted their time in calligraphic copying of the Holy Quran. A number of such evidences has survived to the present. Another important variety of sources pertaining to religion consists of the writings of several Sufi and Bhakti saints of medieval India. Saints such as Sudras, Tulasidas, Mirabai, Chaitanya, Vidyapati, and Sufi texts like Zahirat ul Mulk and the preachings of Baba Farid enshrined in Guru Granth Sahib was extremely popular among the masses at large. Selected works on the lives and teachings of Sufi saints. The lives of Sufi saints was much revered during this period. A large number of authors devoted much attention to the mystic practices and daily lives of these mystic saints. Another significant number of literary sources comprises of literary works, biographical accounts, foreign travelers' accounts, royal orders, and letters. Some of the famous secular literary sources, their dates and authors are listed below. Chachanama or Fatehka Nama is an account which throws light on the Arab invasion of Sindh. Rajatarangani was written by Kalhana. It is an account of the history of Kashmir. Kitab ul Hind was authored by Al-Biruni. Tabqat-e-Nazari was penned by Minhaj ul Siraj. Throws light on the newly built Turkish Empire. Tariq-e-Firozshahi is another book written by Ziauddin Barani, deals with the Khilji and Tughlaq dynasties. Batmabad by Malik Mohad Jaisi deals with the context of Alauddin Khilji and Rana of Chittur, a powerful Rajput kingdom of Rajasthan. Tariq al-Sindh was the book of Mir Muhammad Mazoom. Tajul Mazir of Hasan Nizami elaborates the life of times of Qutbuddin Aibak. Humayun Nama was written by Humayun's sister Gulbadan Begum. It tells about his problems and campaigns. Tariq-e-Rashidi also gives accounts of Humayun's reign. Akbarnama and Ain Akbari are famous historical accounts of Emperor Akbar and written by famous author Abul Fazl. Tarikh-i-Akbari by Khwaja Nizamuddin Ahmad deals with Akbar's era. Tuzuk-i-Jahangiri is an autobiographical account of Jahangir, the great Mughal emperor. Tarikh-i-Shershahi by Abbas Khan Sherwani and other texts like Tarikh-i-Shahi by Ahmad Yadkar throw excellently light on the reign of Sher Nama by Abdul Hamid Lahori and Nama by Mirza Amin Ghazwani are all treatises of the Shah Jahan era. Mundakab-ul-Bab by Kafi Khan and Mirat-e-Alam by Bakhtran Khan, Tarikh-i-Irad Khan by Irad Khan, and written by contemporary scholars during the rule of Aurangzeb Alamgiri, the last powerful monarch of the Mughal dynasty. Non-Muslim literary texts. Non-Muslim literary texts are fewer in number but are equally important as source. Prithviraj Rasu by Chand Badai was considered to be an authentic source till recent times. But recent researchers have proved otherwise. Prithviraj Vijay Kavya and Hamir Mahakavya, the work of Bengali poet Chandrasekhar, namely Surjan Charit Kavya, give a better and more reliable picture of the Chauhan era. Jain texts such as Puratan Prabandh, Sarang, and Kavya are another non-Muslim text important for medieval Indian history. So medieval literary works, a number of books, texts, and poetic compositions have been found which does not shed light on the historical events of medieval India, but are useful because they provide insight into the society and culture of the medieval period. Puranic and literary texts are in many categories. Next, we are going to see about the sources of modern Indian history. An abundance of historical material is available for the study India from the mid-18th century to the mid-20th century. In constructing the history of modern India, priority needs to be given to archives. Archives refer to a collection of historical records and documents, usually primary sources documents, that is, those documents that have been created as a necessary part of some activity that is administrative, legal, social, and commercial. They are unique original documents, not consciously written or created or convey information to a future generation. An important part of archives relating to modern India are the official records, that is, the papers of government agencies at various levels. The records of East India Company provide a detailed account of trading conditions during the period 1600 to 1857. When the British Crown took over the administration, it also kept a large variety and a volume of official records. These records help historians to trace every important development stage by stage and flow the process of decision making and psychology of the policy makers. The records of the European and East Indian companies, that is Portuguese, Dutch, and French, are also useful for constructing the history of 17th and 18th centuries. They are primarily important from the point of view of economic history, but much can be gathered from them about the political setup as well. There are also many contemporary and semi-contemporary works such as memoirs, biographies, and travel accounts, which give us interesting as well as useful glimpses into the history of the 18th and early 19th century. Newspapers and journals made their appearance in the later part of the 18th century, and they provide very valuable information on most all aspects of the Indian society, especially in the 19th and 20th centuries. Other sources of modern Indian history include oral evidence, creative literature, and painting. Archival material. There are 4 categories of official records: central government archives, state government archives, records of intermediate and subordinate authorities, and judicial records. Apart from this, there are private archives and archival sources available in abroad. Central government archives. The National Archives of India, located in New Delhi, contains most of the archives of the Government of India. These provide authentic and reliable source material on varied aspects of modern Indian history. The records with the National Archives come under these various groups representing different branches of the Secretariat at different stages of its development. This happened as the work of the East India Company was distributed among various branches, public or general, revenue, political, military, secret, commercial, judicial, education, etc. And a separate set of records was kept for each of these branches or departments. With the appointments of James Rennell as the first surveyor of General of Bengal in 1767, the Survey of India began to scientifically map the unknown regions of the country and its bordering lands. The records of the Survey of India, as well as the journals and memoirs of the surveyors, provide valuable information not only on geographical matters, but also contemporary social economic conditions and other historical aspects. The proceedings of the public, judicial, and legislative departments provide ample data for studying the social and religious, political, and colonial government. The government policies on education and growth of education system during the colonial rule are mentioned in the educational records of the central archives. Next, archives of the state governments. The source material in the state archives comprise the records of the former British Indian provinces, the erstwhile princely states which were incorporated in the Union after 1947, the foreign administrations other than those of British. Apart from this, the records of those Indian powers which were taken over by the British, for instance, the archives of the Kingdom of Lahore, Khalsa Darbar records from 1800 to 1849 are important source material. Another important collection of the pre-British public archives in India is a Peshawar Daftar housed in the Alienation Office, Pune. It forms the most valuable single source for the study of Maratha history for a period of almost a century before the fall of Peshwas. For studying the history of the princely states of Rajasthan, that is Jaipur, Bikaner, Jodhpur, Udaipur, etc., the archives of these states now housed in Rajasthan State Archives at Bikaner are valuable. Similarly, the history of Dogra rule from 1846 in Jammu and Kashmir can be studied in the valuable collection of state papers housed at Jammu. The other significant archives of the princely states are those of Gwalior, Indore, Bhopal, and all in Madhya Pradesh, Travancore in Cochin in Kerala, Mysore in Karnataka, and Kolhapur in Maharashtra. Archives of 3 presidencies. The early records of Fort William were lost during the siege of Calcutta in 1756, but the archives of the Bengal presidency after the British victory at Plassey have survived, more or less in a complex series, which are partly available in National Archives of India. Archives of other European powers. The archives related to the Portuguese preserved in Goa, mainly belonging to the period of 1700 to 1900, are source for the history of modern India. Valuable for the history of Portuguese Persian India, the orders and dispatches from Lisbon received in Goa and the responses and reports dispatched from India to Portugal constitute the most significant historical material among the Portuguese archives. The Dutch records of Cochin, Malabar are in the Madras Record Office, those of Chinchura in the State Archives of West Bengal. The French archives of Chandranagore, Pondicherry were taken to Paris by the French authorities before they relinquished these settlements. The archives of the Danish possessions were also transferred to Copenhagen when the Danes sold Tranquebar and Sirambur to the English East India Company in 1945. The remaining Danish records, mainly related to Tranquebar, are now housed in the Madras Record Office. Next, judicial records. Housed in the Madras Record Office, the archives of the Mayor's Court at Fort St. George, beginning from 1689, are the earliest available judicial archives. Published archives. The most significant archival publications are the parliamentary papers, which include many experts from the records of the East India Company and the Government of India under Crown, the reports of the parliamentary select committees. Private archives. Private archives comprise papers and documents of individual and families of note who played a significant role in the development of modern India. The papers of eminent leaders of the nationalist movement and the records of organizations like the Indian National Congress are housed in the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library in New Delhi. Foreign repositories. A vast body of historical materials related to the history of modern India is available in the repositories of erstwhile imperialist powers who ruled different parts of Indian subcontinent, as well as in some other countries in England, the India Office Records, London, and the records kept in the British Museum are very valuable. Biographies, memoirs, and travel accounts. Many travelers, traders, missionaries, and civil servants who came to India have left accounts of their experience and their impressions of various parts of India. An important group among these writers was that of missionaries who wrote to encourage their respective societies to send more missions to India. Bishop Heber's journal and Abu Dubois' Hindu Manners and Customs provide useful information on the socio-economic life of India during the period of decline of the Indian powers and the rise of British. Newspapers and journals. Newspapers and journals of the 19th and 12th centuries published in English as well as in different vernacular languages form an important and authentic source of information for the construction of the history of modern India. The first attempts to publish newspapers in India were made by employees of English East India Company who sought to expose malpractices to private trade. For instance, in 1776, William Lords, being censured by the Court of Directors for private trading, resigned from the company and announced his intention in publish a newspaper. From the second half of the 19th century, many powerful newspapers appeared. The founding fathers of the Indian National Congress in 1885 were the journalists. Some of their publications were the Hindu and Swadeshi Mitran under the editorship of G. Subramania Iyer, Kesari and Maratha under Balaganga Tilak, Bengali under Surendranath Banerjee, Amrita Bazar Patrika under Sisir Kumar Ghosh and Motilal Ghosh, etc. are the important and to infuse a feeling of nationalism among the Indians living abroad. Newspaper depicts almost all aspects of life in colonial India from around the 1870s onwards. From 1920s onwards, the newspaper tracked major events during freedom struggle. Oral evidences. Oral history refers to the construction of history with the help of non-written sources, for instance, personal eminences. Oral sources allow historians to broaden the boundaries of their discipline and corroborate their findings from the sources of history. Creative literature. The most significant outcome of the Indo-European contact was the literary genre of the novel, which emerged in the later half of the 19th century. Painting. Some information on the socio-economic, political, and cultural life during the colonial period can be obtained from the paintings of that period. The company paintings are also source for the history of modern India. They picturizes the people and scenes as they existed at the time. Creates festivals, dances of the people are visible in these works. Company paintings continued to be popular in the 19th century until the introduction of photography in India in 1840s. So, as a conclusion, archival materials consist of public, private, and foreign repositories. Public archives include the archives of the Government of India, archives of state governments, archives of three presidencies of Bengal, Madras, Bombay, and judicial records. Private archives, papers, and documents of individuals and families of note who played a significant role in the development of modern India. Biographies, memoirs, accounts of travelers, traders, missionaries, and civil servants during 18th and 19th centuries, as well as memoirs written by Indian leaders during independence movement. Newspapers and journals published in India as well as abroad. Other oral traditions, creative literature, and painting are the important material or source to know about the modern Indian history. Thank you.